Hello and welcome to the 15-minute show, part of the Arsenal Therapy podcast. As always, we'll be broadcasting twice a week, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and always turn on your notifications. So today's a massive day as Arsenal have lifted their first trophy. Well, massive day because Aaron Ramsdale showed that he can save a penalty. So that was something that was a major doubt. He's been criticised heavily. And whilst the penalty shootouts and friendlies may seem like a bit of a waste of time, for Aaron Ramsdale, that could be a big moment. It's just that confidence to believe that he can actually stop a spot kick. So hopefully that'll be a big thing for him. He'll have the belief he'll actually stop something this season. But for me, penalties are something that I'm not overly worried about with keepers, given that you maybe face for a season. But all in all, it was a fairly frustrating night to watch Arsenal. Things didn't really click. We had some decent individual performances, such as Thomas Partey. But the bad news of the night obviously came after the game when Arteta confirmed that Gabriel Jesus has had a small procedure. So that's one that's caused a lot of, I guess, worry within Arsenal fans, especially on the Twitter spheres. But the good news is he says it's a minor procedure. It's nothing major, and he should only be out a few weeks. Now, I guess the speculation around this on Twitter is that it's to remove some debris from the knee that's causing a bit of discomfort. It is the same knee that he injured last season, which in itself is a bit of a worry. But all in all, if he's going to be out 2-3 weeks, hopefully that's all we lose him for this season. And if that's the case, we know Eddie Nketiah can step in. He's had a lot of minutes in pre-season. And last night, he actually looked very sharp. We know he's not Gabriel Jesus. We know he's not at that level. But the reality is very few players are. And if Eddie has to step in for a few games, we know he can more than do the job. And alongside him, the other option is Leandro Trossard. So again, last night, Leo just looked like different gravy when he came on. Some lovely touches, a nice little back heel around the halfway line. He was only on for about, I think, 28 minutes, 30 minutes, and he managed to create 3 chances, and he went through on goal. A bit of a weak shot in the end, but it was a lovely run off the back of a brilliant Jorginho defense split and pass, and exactly what we've seen from him over the last 6 months. So he's a player that has come out of preseason really strongly, looked like one of our best players in the warm-up games, and is someone that probably has earned himself a starting spot going into the season, especially as Martinelli continues to recover from that tackle from Caicedo. He still looks a little bit rusty, but again, he's getting back very quickly. And we saw last night that pace, the ability to hold the ball, to twist and turn his man, and at one point got in, had a very good shot off his left foot from a very, very tight angle. But he's a player that's very much on the road to recovery, and we should see back to his best very quickly. But the question for Arsenal is, do they enter the striker market? So the big story this week has been the David Raya news. So Raya is a keeper that could cost around £40 million. Although personally, I see him going for closer to 25 because Tottenham moved for a keeper, Man United moved for a different keeper, and it's left Raya with only a handful of options to go to, and Arsenal seems to be the place that he wants to go to, with Fabrizio Romano reporting last night that he had agreed personal terms with Arsenal. What that means, we don't know at this point. We're still waiting to see if Arsenal agree a fee, but the reports earlier in the week were that Arsenal would offer around £15 million, which is some way off what Brentford want. But if Arsenal can meet somewhere in the middle, this seems like a market opportunity for Arsenal to really enable Ramsdale to get that competition that he perhaps needs. Although now he's saving penalties, maybe that's all he needed was a link to another player. But this has led to questions. Should Arsenal be signing Raya, or should we be putting that money into a forward? The reality is that may not be the case. It may not be an either or. We could be looking at 2 players. We could be looking at a keeper to come in and really challenge Ramsdale. And it could be a case of there was some money available in the pot and they see it as an opportunity that they can't miss. And it's come up at the right time, and Arsenal will go ahead with it. But that's a very much wait and see. But on the striker front, we have got news that Balogun is a target for West Ham. This is one that there's been some tenuous links to all summer. They've never really got going. There's been links to Palace, Brighton, and so on, because now it seems that the Milan clubs can't afford him, and Arsenal are being rigid on their price tag, which so we should be. This is a guy that scored 21 league goals last season. He led the line all season for Reims, and he showed that he is more than capable of being a player that can lead the line. And that's a very difficult task in itself. It's one thing coming on and scoring goals off the bench, getting 10 minutes here and there, or getting the odd start. It's a very different ask, having that level of consistency to constantly be the player that your team relies on. So 50 million for Balogun is more than fair, especially when you see what Højlund's gone to Man United for. Now, Højlund does look like a top quality prospect, but he's still a very raw player and someone that only scored 9 goals last year compared to Balogun's 21. So we are talking about a player that will get you goals. He's physically very strong. He looks ready, and he's someone that should be coming in to make a real difference. And if you want to go into a transitional team like West Ham, who will play in those big open spaces and will put the ball long, Balogun's a very, very good option for them. And he's someone that will run in behind. He will hold the ball up, and he will attack the box. And West Ham put a lot of crosses into the box, and they do try to get in behind teams because they do sit deep. So it's almost the opposite style of play to Arsenal, and it's more similar to what he played at Reims last season. So all in all, that move seems like a very good fit. The question is, how much do Arsenal charge? They've been holding out all summer for £50 million, which in the current market is more than fair. We're not talking about 10 years ago. We're talking about the current market, which is grossly inflated and lacking strikers as well. So a player like Balogun should come at a premium. And if Arsenal were to buy Balogun, we would be probably charged 70 million. So this is a point for Arsenal to really put the foot down, show what we're made of in this window, and not let anyone walk over us, because Balogun's an asset that we can sell for big money. And West Ham have absolutely rinsed us for Declan Rice in terms of payment structure. We definitely slightly overpaid for Rice. There is no doubt about that. But sometimes when you've got your top target, that's just what you have to do. And Arsenal made it clear that they were going to buy Declan Rice. And it was a statement signing as much as a need for the team. Balogun to West Ham, on the other hand, is a player that not so much they absolutely need, but it's a signing that they may need to make to appease the fans. Because despite getting 105 million for Declan Rice with a reported 75 million up front, which is pretty much unheard of, West Ham have failed to sign anyone, and we're about 10 days from the start of the season. With that in mind, their fans are getting very, very agitated, and all the Billy Big Bollocks that we saw over the Rice deal and the chests out, giving it the large with Rice and the money they were getting, they're now realizing that all it means is their owner's got 75 million quid in his pocket and they've got no players. So if Arsenal are to sell to West Ham, this is a move that we could possibly push that price up to 60 million, because West Ham are desperate and they need to sign someone. They're selling 𝗔𝗎, which leaves them with very, very few options up front. And especially a player like Balogun that can go out and bang you in 20 goals and has grown up in the English league. He's had a fairly good spell at Middlesbrough where he was used in multiple positions, and that really toughened him up. That made him a very different player to the player that we saw breaking through at Arsenal, who at times looked a bit lost playing first-team football. And then his time in Reims just brought back that swagger that we saw in his youth days. So if Arsenal are to sell to West Ham, you would like to think that we get a very good payment structure in place to essentially help balance the cost of what we've paid for Rice and put just cash in the till that can be used towards another transfer. And on that front, one of the key players that will be linked to and continue to be linked to is Mohamed Kudus from Ajax. Now, he's a very, very interesting player for us. One, because he's played on the right wing a lot. He's a left-footed player. And like Bukayo Saka, he favours cutting inside. So when we have that build-up down the right where Ben White goes down and he pops the ball inside to Saka, he runs, he inverts and carries that ball into the middle, into Odegaard. That's a tactic that we've been working on for a couple of years now. you would be getting a player that can do that very quickly. He's physically very strong. He's someone that likes the tackle. He invites contact. He's not scared of it. And although his technique isn't the cleanest, he's a very secure player in possession because he's got a bit of a scrappiness to him that perhaps we don't quite have in our team, with the exception of a Martinelli. But this is one that is extremely interesting because Kudus has also played up front for Ajax. He's got a very good goals and assists record, and he's been used in midfield as well. So primarily, he is a right winger. He is a player that's very much left-footed. He doesn't particularly like to use his right, but that can be developed. So the great thing is, if we were to get him in now over the next couple of weeks, he could fill in for Jesus and add to that competition with 𝗔𝗙𝗖 and 𝗔𝗙𝗧𝗬. He can also be developed into an 8, and he can also be that Saka backup that we've been craving for a long time. Because while Saka probably doesn't need a backup to push him all the way, the beauty about Kudus is he can play across 3 positions and he can play them well, which means that he will get minutes and he's always going to be fresh. So if we have a situation like last night where Saka has illness and isn't able to play, we've got someone like Kudus that can step in, give us a very solid 70 minutes performance, whatever, and we're not relying on someone like Fabio Vieira, who, whilst he had a decent game last night, isn't overly comfortable on the right wing in the Arsenal setup because he's a player that doesn't like inviting contact. His game is built around arriving quickly, getting rid of it quickly, and using his body to evade defenders. It's a very different way to the way Saka plays, who very much loves that contact. He engages, and although we complain about it, Saka is a player that he does welcome the contact, and a lot of top wingers do that, and it's part of what makes them so dangerous and so difficult to play against. But on a more positive note last night, we obviously finished the game with a penalty shootout win. And the game itself was a fairly drab encounter, if we're going to be honest. And the key thing that we saw was the inclusion of Declan Rice playing as a left 8, with Thomas Partey playing at the base of the midfield in a 6th position. Thomas Partey was superb last night, probably the best player on the pitch. But alongside him, Declan Rice had a couple of big interceptions, a couple of big moments where he broke up play, one great carry into the box where he had a well-blocked shot that could have got him his first Arsenal goal. And all in all, had a fairly good game without, I would say, being spectacular and grabbing the headlines. And at times did look a bit leggy, which is something that we just don't see from Declan. Usually he is so sharp, so on the ball, and just a tireless runner. But we have to remember with him that he has only played limited minutes in pre-season. He missed the Barcelona game. He played against the All-Stars, played against Man United, but he didn't arrive before in time for the Nuremberg game. So he is slightly further back with his pre-season. He also missed a couple of days training, and at this time, every session is very important. So, but the key, those minutes that he played last night will be very important to him. 62 minutes at the Emirates, on the carpet, playing on a proper pitch, that will be very valuable. And it's something that it let Arteta see what the two of them could do together. And you have to remember, these two have only played together once. So it's very rare that two players line up together and just click on day one, especially when you're playing a complex system like Mikel Arteta has in place. But when Rice came off, Kai Havertz came on, and he has been the player that's been used in that left 8 position for the most part. And Havertz looked superb. He covered ground very, very easily. Positionally, he was organising teammates. And that's a stark contrast to what we were seeing a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, whenever Havertz came on the pitch, it was other players pointing to him, move, look, follow your man, mark that space. Last night, it was Havertz telling others to do that. And he brought an aggression to the pitch that I haven't seen from Havertz before. He won a couple of challenges. He looked good. He carried the ball very well. And his big, rangy runs just enable Arsenal to have something different that we didn't have from Granit Xhaka in that position. And we know about the quality of his runs into the box. Along with him, Kieran Tierney brought a similar level of aggression. And he once again looked excellent when he came on, really broke things up and kind of up the tempo at a time when we needed it. And that was coming off. That was a hard thing to do because Jurriën Timber was once again superb playing in that left back spot, and will probably be the starter on Wednesday or Sunday whenever we play City in the Community Shield. And physically, he looks ready. He's a player that doesn't seem to be fazed by the pace of the game. Technically, on the ball, he's excellent. We had that one move around the halfway line where he kind of feigns one way, off you go with the other, and just completely beat his man before playing a pass into Nketiah. And that's what we want to see from a player like Timber. He's got a slightly different way of playing that inverted role than Zinchenko, which is exactly what Arteta's talked about with unpredictability. And finally, just before we go, the last news was on Alexander Zinchenko, who him and his wife had a baby last night, and which is possibly part of the reason why he hasn't started training yet. And Arteta said he will start training in the coming days. So he's expected to be back very, very soon. So that is a positive piece of news to end what is I guess, worrying day for Arsenal fans with the news of Jesus' injury. But all being well, it will just be a minor procedure and he will be back very, very soon. But guys, thanks for joining, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will be back again on Tuesday with more. So have a good day, and thank you very much.